All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is HD.
And this is Cat's Pajamas.
And we're both here to be co-casting a set of games here. This is for the IPL. This is bonus footage of the qualifiers, and it is going to be a PvP between MSI Fnatic or FnaticMSiTT1 versus Complexity's Minigun. This is going to be actually a really, really good Protoss versus Protoss. I've met both TT1 and Minigun, and they are both splendid gentlemen. And I think this is going to be a gentleman's game, in fact. This is going to be an awesome one.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we're throwing up here that it is Complexity Minigun. At the time that Minigun played this, he was still with Root. Recently, there has been the merger, so I didn't know which one to put up, so I just decided to err on the side of Complexity.
Yeah,
so
Complexity recently acquiring Root Gaming, actually.
Yep, absolutely.
Big announcement.
Still really weird for me to say Complexity Minigun, though. It just doesn't flow off the tongue. So.
He hasn't even changed his ID yet. Hasn't had time to buy a new StarCraft 2 account.
I love, though, Minigun saying PvP not good for Mini. So let's see what he does. Minigun is all about decision making, not necessarily ridiculously high APM micro things like that. Decision making. TT1's kind of on the other side of that. Really loves abusive force field strategies. I expect I expect TT1 for sure to do some sort of a strong gateway push. He does it in every matchup. I would not be shocked at all if he just outright 4 gates. But I'm curious to see how this game ends up developing. Should be very, very interesting one way or another.
Yeah, there's a couple of builds, obviously, that have made their way into the Protoss versus Protoss front in terms of games and strategies, and really 4-gate is still at the top of the list of even the pro gamers, as well as all the way down to the Bronze League. And on top of that, you know, going for, I believe, 2-gate Robo is actually a very good strategy as well in PvP. And really, that's pretty much the only builds that PvP is kind of centered around and based upon.
Yeah, 2-gate row is pretty powerful now. Of course, with the increased timing in warp gate technology, it's a lot more viable to be able to get down an Immortal or something like that to block a 3-gate Blink Stalker build or something along those lines, or a Stalker Rush. Yeah. So it's certainly pretty powerful.
On top of that, you get the Robo Bay for obs in case your opponent's DT rushing you too.
Yes, absolutely. And it also really sets you up nicely as far as tech goes as well, because if you're able to hold off any sort of a rush whatsoever, it sets you up really nicely for that late game PvP. And late game PvP is still about who can get more Colossi. Yeah. So, I mean, it puts you in a really good position for that. Yeah, War of the Worlds indeed. So, Minigun actually has double gas. He is going for his 2-gateway build here for the meantime. TT1 has not decided to put down any sort of a second gateway or anything like that, just putting up 1 Stalker and dropping down another Pylon. But a little bit of Chrono Boost saved up for TT1 and a ton of Chrono Boost saved up for Minigun.
Yeah, Minigun here saving a lot of Chrono Boost energy. I wonder if he's going to be using it on his Warp Gate, and if he has been saving it, I wonder why he hasn't thrown it down on the Warp Gate yet. In fact, I don't even think he's he is researching Warp Gate, so kind of interesting. I think he's saving his... I don't know what he's saving it for, actually, because we see on the production tab that MSiTT1 or FnaticMSiTT1 is going for Twilight Council. So, in fact, we may have a DT Rush, or we may have 3-gate Blink Stalker coming out. Yeah,
it's going to be really telling you to see how much gas he decides to save up here soon. With as many Stalkers as he's producing, I'm guessing Blink Stalkers, because otherwise a lot of players will go into very heavy Zealot with a few Sentries thrown in if they want to do some sort of a DT Rush, or they'll just cut out the Sentries altogether and just put in like 1 Stalker with a couple of Zealots. But I'm interested to see how this works out. Oh, Minigun is actually going ahead and putting down a Robo facility, so we're running into what we were talking about before. We have TT1, he's going after, it's going to be a 3-gate Blink Stalker build, and he's going to run into a 2-gate Robo, which, because of the Warp Gate timings and things like that, means Minigun is going to have out a little bit quicker Immortal.
Yeah, the Immortal is actually going to really put a stop to any Blink shenanigans, unless Minigun somehow manages to misplace his Immortal and allows it to get sniped by the Blink Stalkers. Remember, Stalkers with Blink are kind of like fly like a butterfly or float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. So you want to make sure that your units are not spread out. You want to make sure that they're clumped up and perfectly secure. And so Minigun is going to have to be very careful with his Immortal, but if he keeps it alive and keeps it centered around the rest of his Stalkers, then I don't see this Blink Stalker strategy really playing out too well.
Absolutely, and it looks like TT1 actually going after 4-gate Blink Stalker, so A 3-gate Blinkstalker build is good for harassment and things like that, but a 4-gate Blinkstalker build is not all in, but it's really aggressive.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so TT1 does have a lot of Stalkers up. He's going to be warping in some more here in a second. Needs to drop down a forward pylon, but looks like Minigun is going to have an Immortal up, and he's going to Robo-Bait at the same time. So 1 base Colossus here versus a 4-gate Blinkstalker. This is going to be really interesting. TT1 does have a significant advantage in terms of units, but if Minigun can hold off for just a second and let this Immortal come up, he should be in a great position.
Yeah, Minigun here just has to wait for his Immortal, and on top of that, if he could get his Colossus out, that would be a huge boost to his DPS and his firepower. I don't know if he's going to be able to have a Colossus. He's probably just going to have to make another Immortal. Yeah, in fact, he's making 2 Immortals now, 1 more Immortal to add on to the first one, and he has to be careful with this Immortal. He doesn't want to allow it to be sniped off. He's using his Zealots here as cannon fodder so that his Stalkers and his Immortals can dish out a little bit of damage, but of course, now that his Zealot shields have been depleted, he's going to have to fall back a little bit. It looks like TT1 has thrown up a pylon of his own, and he's going to be able to warp in more Stalkers. That's a lot of Stalkers, cats, and we're about to be seeing some heavy Protoss on Protoss action.
Absolutely. If this second Immortal gets up, this could change things considerably, and TT1 blinks, and he's going to be able to pick off this Immortal very quickly. There's already a second Immortal who's exacting his damage and picking off a couple of these Stalkers, and the Immortal gets away! The Immortal gets away, and Minigun is able to drive off the rest of those forces. So, wow, what a ridiculous play. What a ridiculous battle of Micro we're seeing here.
Yeah, and the Immortal being pulled away is huge because it will be able to regenerate its shields. Notice here, Minigun trying to keep the Immortal in the back, knowing that those Stalkers full well can blink and pick off that Immortal at any time because its shields are still regenerating. It looks like TT1 is going to fall back into his pylon as he warps in more Stalkers. Going to try to shove his way up the ramp here, almost picking off the Immortal, finishes it off with the second volley, cats, and this is pretty bad, I think, for Minigun, who needs another Immortal now. The Stalkers blinking back as they're weakening their HP and they're falling back to stay alive. Minigun in a lot of trouble. He needs another Immortal, and he gets it out just in time.
Yep, but TT1 did his damage there. He equalized the supply. Minigun was ahead by about 8 supply or 9 supply going into that last engagement. So TT1 did manage to even that up. He still has the advantage in terms of pure Stalker count at the moment, and he's recovering his shield. So he's going to make his way back in here. But, ooh, wow, actually, Minigun was sitting back and firing with his Immortal. Almost no damage done to Minigun, and does manage to drive off that attack. So very nice job. Looks like TT1 pulling away, and that will allow Minigun to move into Colossus mode if TT1 doesn't continue to reinforce. Indeed, right. Colossus coming up.
Yeah, he's going to get a Colossus, and that is going to change the game dramatically. So right now, TT1 has got a couple options. Is he going to continue with his Stalker aggression? If so, he needs to do it before the Colossus comes out for obvious reasons. If not, then I would like to see him fall back into an expansion. Otherwise, I'm not quite sure what TT1 can do because he's not going to have Colossus out, and Colossus really are the defining unit in PvP. So yes, he's actually going to sneak a Nexus over at the 10 o'clock position.
This is cute. This is cute. It could really work out for him if Minigun decides to sit back and collect like a force of Colossi. It'll allow TT1 to start to catch back up economically and have out enough units that he can neutralize those Colossus numbers. But if Minigun is able to establish his Nexus for any length of time, TT1 will still find himself behind, and TT1's going to make his way up, doing a lot of damage to the Nexus. Unfortunately, isn't going to get those last couple of critical shots. Minigun does hold. He also reveals the Colossi. And I'm curious to see how TT1 reacts to this. He does have charge coming up at the moment, which is interesting.
Yeah, actually, I think he's just going to go with the pure Zealot Stalker build, which can be effective. The charge slots are actually really nice against those Stalkers that Minigun has on the field right now. And if the chargers can get a surround on the Colossus, they can be somewhat effective as well. Now remember, Colossus, because they have those wongly legs, they can walk away from Zealots and any unit underneath pretty easily.
Right.
But TT1 is kind of going for an interesting route of units here. He's going for charge slots, and he's going for Blink Stalkers, and he's facing the more standard Immortal Colossus Stalker ball. And I wonder what's going to win, this revolutionary kind of new build or Minigun's standard Colossus build.
I gotta think that the advantage goes to Minigun at the moment, though. He's farther along the tech path. He also was going to have this Nexus done not that much later than TT1 finished his hidden Nexus. And it looks like
going for Templar Archive.
Yeah, I think he's just Templar Archives are only 50 seconds to construct. That's half the time of a DT Shrine. I think we're seeing a Charge Slot Archon build coming out of him here.
Yeah, that would be weird.
Yeah, which is something, you know, Artosis did. A lot of players have done for a while, but Artosis used to great effect against, like, Grubby in the NASL, things like that. I'm really curious to see how this ends up, though, because I think this transition is decent, but he's sacrificing a lot here with these Stalkers, and these Colossi could rip those apart. A couple of Stalkers going down, but not a ton of damage done.
Yeah, you're right. I think we're going to be seeing an Archon build coming out here for TT1, and in fact, the first two High Templar are immediately being morphed into an Archon. Now, he has the gas to fund this off of one base. I would like to see him grab the gas at his natural. It doesn't look like he's going to go for those gases, and really that only means he's going to be able to make maybe one more Archon. So really interesting that he hasn't added on 2 more gases to fund this kind of an Archon build, because remember, Archons are actually pretty cheap in terms of minerals. They don't really require that much. So here we are. We have Minigun now moving out with a significant army. TT1 has the Charge Lot Blink Stalker Archon build, and I can't wait to see these two armies collide and how and what's going to happen.
Yeah, it looks like Minigun, both players playing pretty passively. Neither really wants to engage or reveal what they're going to do at the moment. A couple more Templar did come in. They're going to make themselves into another Archon here. And those Archons are going to have to buffer the damage from the Colossi. If they're able to do that and those Zealots are able to charge up, that could be effective. But if it looks like Minigun is going to have a pretty good-sized gateway support army with this, especially with the economy of the second base that he's actually gathering. He's way up in workers. His economy is much better. He's mining twice the gas. I think that his gateway backbone is going to be plenty large enough to hold off any sort of units out of TT1. TT1 is certainly going to have an opening, though, but he's got to take it pretty quick.
You know, it's all going to come down to these charge lots. He's got so many on the field right now. Those Archons, like you said, will have to absorb the damage from the Colossus, and then the charge lots will have to quickly surround. It looks like TT1 has decided now is the time to move in. Gonna move in with all of his forces, blinking his Stalkers up as well. Minigun pulling his Colossus back wisely, keeping them out of the way of the charge lots and out of the way of the Stalkers. It looks like the ground forces for Minigun are all gonna be but wiped out. So now it's just gonna be Colossus versus Archons, charge lots, and Stalkers. And does Minigun have the micro to keep his Colossus alive? I can't believe it. This may actually work. What a surprising turn of events. The probes now being pulled off the mineral line to fend off against the Stalkers, and it looks like TT1 may be able to pull this off. This is so close.
This is so close, but TT1 invested a ton into this in the hope that he was going to do significant economic damage as well, and frankly, he didn't. He has been on the same number of probes for a while. Minigun still producing. Minigun on double basis. He's going to be able to replenish these Colossi very quickly, and I've got to say, you know, Minigun traded not... I still think TT1 did quite a bit of damage there, but it's not enough to really turn the tides. Minigun is still in a good position in this game. I think he's still got the better of this situation, even without, you know, knowing about this base over here to the left. And he's got to suspect that a natural is up, or a second base is up somewhere, but I still think that this game favors him thus far.
Yeah, well, the nice thing here is TT1 was able to whittle that Colossus count down, because if he hadn't attacked, then Minigun would have had 8 Colossus. And the Colossus, the more you add on, the more exponentially difficult they become to deal with. So I like TT1's attack. He essentially traded armies, but didn't really kill off the rest of the Colossus. So you are right in that regard, Cats. Minigun is still kind of favoring a good lead right here against TT1.
And TT1 actually did a really nice thing with his army there. He kept his Stalkers back just far enough that they weren't going to be attacked by any Immortals whatsoever, and that allowed the charge lots to get in and do all the damage in the world against those very, very high DPS against armored units in the Immortals. And that was really kind of the change. Oh, it looks like... Oh, yeah, Minigun is going to see this base over here at the 9 o'clock. There he goes. We'll see what he decides to do to take that out. TT1 realizes this, immediately rallying in some units. Yeah, and this is actually... I don't know if I agree with the way he's rallying these in, because he's rallying his way in through a couple of tight choke points, and if Minigun has sent his army in at that point, Minigun would have been able to tear that apart with the Colossi with Thermal Lance.
Well, I think he was just checking up there for the possibility of a pylon. He didn't want a pylon to go up there and then have to deal with Zealots warping into his mineral line at the later stage of this game. So I kind of like how he moved up, but you may be right and didn't have to send his entire army up there. But a lot of times players, even at the high level, they're just, you know, kind of lazy. Like, oh, whatever, send my whole army up there just to check it out. I'm too lazy to split my army apart right now. Now, it looks like both players are going for another expansion. I like what TT1's doing. He's going for the gold rather than going for a normal expansion. Minigun's actually gone for the normal expansion. And look at the bases on the map. You know, TT1's just everywhere in expansions. He's at the bottom left, at the mid left, and at the inside gold. So it's really kind of strange. TT1 has so many different areas to defend and cover. But the nice thing is he's got charge lots. They're fast. They can move about the map very quickly. But man, Cats, Minigun has got 6 Colossus right now, and that looks very devastating.
Yeah, he's got 6 Colossi, and he's about to finish up this Twilight Council as well. We'll see what he adds down. He's got so much gas that he may just throw down a Dark Shrine, which is going to be pretty effective. Yep, there's the Dark Shrine. Because as far as he knew, TT1 didn't have any sort of detection up.
Well,
TT1, though, exactly. Just finished a robo facility, though, so he's going to have observers on the field here in a second. But I think that DTs used in army compositions are a little bit undervalued right now in PvP because they have their very high DPS is able to do significant damage, and of course they can always turn into Archons if worst comes to worst.
I don't know if DTs would be the best choice, though, simply because right now TT1 has just so many charge lots on the field. And, you know, charge lots, I mean, they're not good against DTs, obviously, but all these charge lots combined, DTs are going to have to slice one at a time, and that's not really the most effective uses of resources. So, I don't know, I almost feel like maybe Storm would be better in this case because there's so many charge lots.
Yeah, it very well could. You know, or even just investing in double robo and upgrades maybe at this point. Going to double forge, just getting upgrades, and then just pumping out an absurd amount of Colossi, especially because, you know, if TT1 is going to commit really, really hardcore to this charge lot build, 3/3 Colossus are just absurdly strong against Zealots. But here comes TT1.
TT1 is coming in to attack this massive Colossus army. The Archons are actually in the back, so they're not doing their job of absorbing the fire from those Colossus, and the Colossus are going to be able to easily move out of the way, and they're going to just climb up to that ridge, and this is not good for TT1.
And TT1's losing all of his reinforcements as well. Looks like he has whittled this down to a pure Colossus army once again, but my god, 8 Colossi. That's going to be able to tear through all the rest of the Stalkers, and Minigun, he is dropping down a few more gateways to support a gateway backbone into this army. I don't know if he lost a single Colossus there, and that's what TT1 needed to do, was whittle down that Colossus number. Right now, he cannot be too happy with where he's at.
Yeah, that attack, that engagement wasn't really the best of spots for TT1. Really engaging in that little valley, which allows the Colossus to kind of maneuver to the ridges above, means that his ground forces cannot. They cannot climb the cliffs like those Colossus can. The Colossus have that advanced, what did Dustin Browder say, the advanced K1 technology or whatever. They can like walk above the cliffs. Yeah, unfortunately, Zealots and Archons can't do that. So TT1 now is in a really bad spot. Minigun has all of his Colossus alive. He's sniped off a Nexus, and he's just going to be able to go around the map.
Oh, no. And here come DTs now, and this DT is going to do so much damage. I don't see any sort of observer around yet. He's trying to get the DT to move out of the way, trying to scare him, but looks like Minigun says, no, I'm actually going to pursue your little Archons, while my other DT comes and destroys the rest of your economy. So, wow, ridiculously good job there, and it looks like, oh, hello, killed Nexus. My apologies. Looks like TT1 did manage to pick off the Nexus here at the top left-hand corner, so I greatly apologize for missing that, but the DTs for Minigun are going to be able to neutralize that damage completely. All of these units going down.
All right, last engagement here, and a lot of Dark Templar now being placed on the field for Minigun, and I can't help but wonder if Minigun is going to just take this game right now, because TT1 doesn't really have anything to deal with the 9 or so Colossus that are in the back. Every time those Colossus fire a round of that laser beam, it's like 100+ damage, and yeah, that's just going to force a GG for TT1.
GG, so there you go, guys. That mysterious, weird thing that is the late game PvP, it didn't actually end at like 5 minutes into the game. It did go longer than that, and for once as well, it didn't evolve into just who can get the more Colossi, the War of the Worlds.
Cats, I've got to say, I like what TT1 tried to do. He tried this new build of Charge Lot Archon, and it worked at the first big attack at the natural of Minigun. It really did kind of work. The second attack, not the best, because his positioning wasn't really, you know, the best, and the Colossus were able to escape. So I like what TT1 did. He was trying to be innovative, and maybe we'll see more of this strategy in the future.
Absolutely, guys. So that does put us at 1-0 in favor of Minigun at the moment. So we're going to head into game number 2. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be back in just a second.